Hello survivors and welcome to First Aid Spray, a Resident Evil podcast by fans for fans. This is episode 102 of the show, and in this edition we're back in the Michael Bay-verse of Biohazard as we continue to cover Resident Evil 6. My name is Sai, and the last stage of Astrobot was absolutely amazing, by the way, and joining me on the panel this week, it's not the real him, you can tell because he's wearing a blue jacket and he would never wear blue. It's Fire Button Steve Valance.
Hi everybody, my colour is yellow.
That's true. Simmons and him have one thing in common, dying over and over again, except he mostly did it on the inside. It's James, aka Moist Owlet.
Don't like sewers?
And interrupting the podcast for an out-of-nowhere vehicle section, it's Kelsey, aka KDB.
That is my Dutch courage that I need for this episode, so let's get on with it.
Every episode of First Aid Spray is recorded live on Discord, so join our server now to become part of our fantastic community that includes Resident Evil diehards and newbies. If you'd like, you can support the show via our merchandise store or over at patreon.com/FASprayPod for as little as $1 a month. All of this and all of our social media links can be found at our website, faspraypod.com. I'll be honest, I'm really impressed that the Discord sound compression picked that up. I don't think we have a lot going on in terms of housekeeping. We've continued to cover the news over on our YouTube to great success. Thank you for everyone who has supported us over there so far yet again, and we'll continue to do so, which I guess leads us nicely into the first headline.
Resident Evil Requiem gets a surprise trailer during this month's Nintendo Direct.
I don't think anybody saw this one coming. James and I broke it down a little bit in the most recent videos. So, Steve, let's go to you first. How did you feel about this trailer? I felt like there was a lot going on. Was it too much?
I think we've all turned around and said, yeah, no more trailers, please, Capcom. Don't spoil anything. Let's have some surprises. Because we've already seen stuff that gets people's brains tickling in very interesting ways. But more importantly, as was the case with RE7 and for some reason Village, there was a bit of talk about, what if they don't use guns, or they'll be too scared to use guns, and literally there's at least 2 shots of her holding firearms. There, you happy? It's a Resident Evil game. What do they do in Resident Evil games? Run from the monsters? No. I genuinely, I'm more impressed at the fact that, accessibility wins and it's going to be on another platform, because at first we thought it was going to be just like, your PlayStations, your PCs and your Xboxes, but no, the Switch is going to get it. Probably I would imagine, graphically toned down version. I don't think the Switch 2 is even comparable to a Series S, is it?
No, definitely not.
So, I don't expect it to be the best looking version, but to have a version of RE9 on the move, that's going to be cool. And obviously, we've got Goggle Man, and we all have Goggle Man theories, and we all know who it really is. It's someone in Requiem.
Yeah, it's a new character. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think, there's going to be a lot of takes about the Nintendo Switch 2 version, and personally, it wouldn't be my first or second or maybe even third choice of how to play the game, I'm going to guess, but it is nice that it's on there, and also it's nice that it actually runs off the hardware and is not a cloud version by the sound of things, because I talked about my previous experience playing the Village cloud demo, and that was terrible enough to just ward me off never getting it for the Switch. So the fact that the Switch 2 is getting 7, Village and Requiem is pretty neat. Kelsey, what do you make of the new trailer?
The trailer is awesome. I think, like everybody, I didn't really need to see much more. I've been sold already. I think this is one of the most revealing things we've had for a while.
Yeah.
I did see the demo stuff that got put online that was at Gamescom, I think. Everyone played the demo, so there was footage of that, and I did see that, which spoiled a fair bit for me, which I was a little bit annoyed about. And then this trailer has definitely shown a bit more. It feels like after that small one they showed prior where they didn't reveal a lot. I can't remember what event that was. Something else where it was I know you said, Si, you was I'm just kind of whelmed by that trailer. That didn't show a lot. And then this just came along and showed loads of stuff. I don't need to see any more, but, happy to see more. It looks amazing. I thought the trailer was solid. I really loved the sort of deliberate hold on the Umbrella logo. at the end. I thought that was really cool and ominous. Lots of stuff in there. Like, it just feels like every time we see stuff from this game, it looks better and better. Like, everybody, hype levels are pretty high. And just to kind of touch on what Steve said, I know that I just got it here. So Digital Foundry said it's targeting 600p resolution on Switch 2, which is
wow.
You know, I mean, it'll be. I think for the people that are going to get it on Switch 2, that's fine. I mean, like you said, Si, it's not going to be my preferred way to play it. It's cool that it's on there, and it's obviously a lot easier these days to scale up and down. So who knows? They might sort of blow us away with it. But I think, it's going to be definitely a scaled down version, but it's cool that it's on there. I was just surprised to see that Nintendo got an exclusive trailer. I mean, that's classically not what's happened. It's been Sony all the way, so they're spreading it around a bit, which is kind of indicative of a lot of the stuff in the industry these days. But yeah, I mean, awesome trailer. Still hyped for Requiem. Looks awesome.
Yeah, and on the Nintendo thing, and I know everyone's sort of situations is different. Maybe with many people, it might be the only console that they can afford. If they want to, if they can only buy one console, they're going to go for the Switch 2. So this doesn't necessarily relate to those people, but I think a lot of people know what they're getting. Well, everyone should know what they're getting with the Switch 2 version. You know you're going to get a graphically lower res version than other consoles, and I guess either A, you have to make peace with that as a Switch 2 owner, or B, in a lot of people's cases, and again, not everyone, but a lot of people, they probably don't care. Like, you don't, if you get a Switch 2, except for the cases where you can only afford one console, you probably don't care about the graphics. You might have another machine for something like that. So, yeah, I'm kind of cool with it as well. James, any more thoughts since we talked about the trailer's release? How are we feeling?
No, I'm just ready for it to come.
Yeah.
That's
the big thing.
5 more months.
That is the crazy thing. You and Steve both said it, where it's like, okay, we're ready now, even though we have 4 or 5 months left until this game comes out. But as we talk now, we know for a fact that we're going to see more of the game this coming Sunday at TGS. There has been a confirmation that there's going to be a Biohazard Requiem stream of some kind from the special stage of TGS. Whether that's trailer, whether that's gameplay, could be something we've seen before, could be something new. And on top of that, literally again, as we record, it will probably have happened, well, it will have happened by the time this podcast goes out. There is a Sony State of Play. So there is also people saying, we could see something there as well, which is mad to think. Like, we can't, how many trailers have we had in the last few months? I don't need any more. I'm ready for the game to be here. And yet somehow we have to survive another 5 months dodging leaks, rumours, and being spoiled. I guess we'll see how it goes.
So our last story tonight, Paul Walter Hauser has been cast in Zach Cregger's new Resident Evil film.
An uncredited role, I'm to understand. This came from Deadline and various other sources, of course, reporting on it immediately. This is from sources, according to Deadline. But yeah, this with Austin Abrams, the other confirmed cast member, no specific roles given. We talked a lot about what Zach Cregger's kind of synopsis for the film is going to be and what he's confirmed so far and that kind of thing. If you aren't aware, or rather, if you are aware of him, or if you aren't aware of him, Paul Walter Hauser, you might have seen him in various pieces. He was in 15 episodes of Cobra Kai, and he's shown up in various other shows like The After Party, Blackbird, Reno 911, and various other places. Is it Reno 911? One of those two. He's also, you might know, a pro wrestler, which is an interesting thing. So whether he's been hired on as an actor or potentially even just like as the body for something, which is something that I'm kind of speculating about because of his build, that's a possibility as well, because he's typically a comedy actor, which is kind of thrown a lot of like, that's an interesting choice. But who knows, right? He might not be playing a human character. He's an athletic guy, a bigger guy, but an athletic guy certainly. So yeah, an intriguing second casting. James, how are we feeling about this? James, you're muted.
Sorry.
No feelings at all.
It's funny you say that, Kels, because I don't really. I mean, uncredited. I don't follow wrestling, so I don't know this person. And I've not really. I've only watched the first season of Cobra Kai, and I do not remember. But then again, I don't remember anyone from Cobra Kai. Not because it's bad or anything. It's just because I have a bad memory. But Yeah, so cool. Big bloke, so like maybe it's going to be because it's uncredited at the moment, it could be BOW stand-in potentially, which is cool to think about. But otherwise, yeah, it's cool, and I hope he does a great job.
Yeah, that's fair. Steve, any thoughts on this one?
I've only known this actor through Cobra Kai and his comic relief. I'm dreading that already. That's an ill omen for me. Yeah, I would have to see him in other roles. If he's going to play basically a comic relief character, that already sours my hope for the film.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, no, he seems generally like a funny guy, but I mean, with professional wrestling and stuff like that, you have to do a lot, take a lot of hits, do a lot of physical work, and still maintain stuff. So maybe he's doing something else there, like BOW. Maybe he's Barry. I don't know. Like, depends how far into the comedy they want to go. But yeah, no. If he's playing a similar character to what he's in Cobra Kai, this film is dead. That's genuinely. As much as I'm sure he's a great actor and stuff, I don't get with his comedy, and it would just ruin everything for me.
That's fair. Kelsey, any thoughts on Paul Waterhauser joining the cast?
Well, I love the theory that he's a BOW that you guys are putting forward. I think that's definitely intriguing and interesting and feels likely just from what you're saying, but I'm easily convinced. So I have to be honest, the more I've heard Cregger talk about this film, the more concerned I am. And I really do not like taking that attitude towards it, but he called it a Rock'em Sock'em film. And now with Steve saying that this guy's like a comedy relief, and I think Cregger also said this is different to my other movies, so I don't think we're getting Weapons or Barbarian or anything like that. I think we're getting a fun, bloody action movie, probably with some snappy one-liners, and maybe the casting of this guy reinforces that theory, but I don't have any other thoughts. Like I say, we were just talking before we started recording. I've kind of recognised his face, and it probably is from some kind of wrestling shows. He's a current champion in Progress Wrestling, which is quite fun.
Nice.
That's the British promotion for those not in the know. Yeah, he's done a lot of various TV. Yeah, jobbing actor, jobbing wrestler as well, by the looks of it. Although he is a champ at the moment. So, I mean, yeah, I'm not going to be too harsh on the film. We've seen nothing of it. I'm very excited and intrigued to see more, but just not seen anything yet that's getting me mega hyped.
Well, what I will say is it's time to start being diligent very soon. The understanding is that they're going to start filming next month in Prague. So shooting is due to commence soon because, of course, a year from now, the movie essentially releases, I think, a year from now this week. So we are
That's the next fast meetup then. Let's organise it together.
That's a great idea.
Down now. Yeah,
that's a great idea. So yes, things will start to come together in terms of it'll be shot, and then we'll get probably a teaser and then a trailer maybe next spring or something, and we'll go from there. It isn't, if nothing else, it's an interesting second casting to announce. But yeah, it's kind of hard to comment on too much because we really don't know. Well, that'll do it for the news then. Strap back in for another exciting round of talking about Resident Evil 6.
Yay!
We have to.
And now, reading the RE-net version of the file Note Found in a Laboratory from Resident Evil 6, Chris Head, who you can find on Casting Call Club at CHead490.
We've been ordered to dispose of Deborah now that the plan has succeeded. But some of us wanted to see what the C-virus would do to her healthy body. So, we injected her. She was just going to be killed and thrown away anyway, so we didn't see any problems with it. Some were excited and had high hopes for her mutation, but there were no visible effects even an hour after injection. Unfortunately, we need to hurry and evacuate Tall Oaks. In just a few hours, it's going to be a giant ball of fire. We're going to have to leave Deborah in the lower levels. Though it's too bad we won't be able to see how she turns out.
The game's so nice, we did it twice, or maybe not so much. Yes, we're here to continue our coverage of Resident Evil 6. If you missed our previous episode 101, we did a real big deep dive into Chris and Piers' campaign and Jake and Sherry's campaign and some general gameplay stuff. It was myself, Steve, James and Jordan. Jordan has tapped out and tagged in, keeping the wrestling thing going, Kelsey, to continue to discuss the campaign portion of Resident Evil 6 today as we do further deep dives on Leon and Helena's campaign and Ada and some guy who doesn't exist called Agent's campaign. We did a lot of the lead up for this in the last episode, so we really can just sort of jump into things. But since the three of us have talked about our previous experiences and that kind of thing before, Kelsey, I'm going to let you lead sort of the beginning of this. What was your first experience with Resident Evil 6? Do you remember being made aware of it? Do you remember the fallout of this game coming out in 2012 and the ensuing wave of, I guess, WTF and memes?
Yes, I do remember it well. Just a quick disclaimer, I'm a little bit under the weather. If my voice gets really croaky, I do apologise, but I can feel it croaking already. Anyway, yes, I do remember my first experiences. I remember seeing gameplay previews pre-launch and thinking it looked definitely not like a game I really wanted to play, but I very clearly remember thinking, well, I'm still going to play it. I'm going to check it out. I'm obligated to. It's Resident Evil. And even though I didn't massively enjoy 5, I was absolutely going to play it. But then the game came out and I saw the reviews and the general consensus, and I think I just kind of washed my hands of it and I did not go anywhere near it. I remember seeing footage of Jake in sort of white rooms and stuff and thinking, look, and some kicking around and fight, and I was just thinking, what is this? This does not look like Resident Evil, but and that was kind of like burned into my mind. And then funnily enough, my actual first proper playthrough was when I was on the very first episode of First Aid Spray that I was on when we did the Villains Part 2 special, where we talked about Simmons. So that episode gave me a reason to finally go and play the game for the first time. So back in the day, I was aware of it and never played it until I finally started to get involved with First Aid Spray. So, and I remember thinking, oh, this plays okay, and it sort of plays quite cleanly, and maybe it's not as bad as everybody was talking, as everybody was saying. And I thought, okay, it's not scary, and I'm not really sure what's going on with the story, but I thought it was mechanically kind of solid. But I was also playing it with this like laser focus on Simmons as well, because I had to get through 20 hours of the game to just talk for 15 minutes about one character on First Aid Spray. Yeah. And I actually think I did everything but Chris's final chapter, which I ended up just watching on YouTube. So I never played those latter stages, but I remember being very soaked into the game and seeing what was going on. And even back then I thought, okay, this it's not what I want. It just feels like an arcade game. I've kind of called it an arcade game whenever I talk about it since then. But I played it with a weird sort of, finally, I'm doing my duty for First Aid Spray. I played it through a really weird lens, and I was maybe kind of I didn't hate it or really super dislike it. And then obviously we've played it again now, and my opinions have sort of advanced a little bit since then, but we'll get into that.
Well, that was going to be the next thing that I wanted to ask, is obviously because the three of us went deep on the gameplay last time, and I mean, if there are things that are different in these campaign, and spoiler alert, I think that's largely not true. I'm sure we'll bring them up as we go through the campaigns. But in terms of just the general game feel, how did you get on with playing Resident Evil 6 this time? Which, as we all know from your social media, ended with you ceremoniously clicking the uninstall button. So
when I finished it, I was so desperate for a palate cleanser. I just played Grand Theft Auto San Andreas for 2 hours, which could not be more far removed from Resident Evil. And I tell you what, in those 2 hours, I had more fun than I did in the 14 or whatever it was that I did playing RE6. But yes, I played obviously Ada and Leon's campaigns. We'll get into details of those as we go along. But generally, like I said, it feels like it's not an on-rails light gun shooter, but it feels like an arcade shooter. I take my son to the arcades a lot, and we play games like this for 5 to 10 minutes in the arcade while we're stood up having an ice cream, and then we move on with our lives. It's not the sort of gameplay that I kind of want to sit down and play for multiple hours, and I could not get through like more than an hour at a time with playing this game, because, you know, okay, like it's, once the sort of shooting begins on a surface level, it's kind of like, oh yeah, this is sort of fun in a weird horde, mindless action kind of way. But then it's all built around like lots of gaming set pieces that feel like they're just kind of strung together for the sake of it, and it ends up feeling quite dull, and for lots of other reasons around that as well. So the arcade nature of it is sort of quite nice, but I think as a full-blown Resident Evil console game, mainline game, it's not something that I enjoyed playing. And you know, you kind of laugh kicking and bulldogging enemies and elbowing them, but it just goes on and on and on, and it's very much like most of the game is like a horde set piece after horde set piece. There's some other little bits which we'll get to which maybe are not like that, and actually I did enjoy, but yeah, there's just things like ridiculous physics. It's very anime style. Like even when the character is running, it's like they're just running faster than a real person would. And yeah, there's little bits that just really annoyed me, like getting knocked down and shooting from the floor. I know they're trying to make this like versatile gameplay, and you know you can roll around and shoot and crawl, but it just feels kind of clunky, and the forced co-op stuff, just I absolutely did not get on with. It stops you in your tracks. Like just trying to get through a door is a laborious task, and it can be really frustrating. So there's like parts of the mechanics that are well put together and smooth, but I just didn't have fun playing it generally, gameplay wise. And there's other stuff that you guys touched on in the first episode, like to do with the UI and stuff like that, which just, yeah, all little bits that just kind of do my head in. But generally, it was not a great time with the gameplay. And I will say, I definitely have a few little positive things to say today, but gameplay wise and getting through the gameplay, it's just, yeah, it was quite miserable, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, let's talk about Leon's campaign first, which I think for many people's experiences will probably be the first one they play, partly because the prologue of the game, before you select a campaign, is Leon, but also he's the top of the list. But we've kept it for now, just for whatever reason. I was like, oh, it pairs with Ada. Ada's the last one, so we'll save it for part 2. So this one, as you may remember, Resident Evil 6's 4 campaigns, they all are meant to have a different style of horror to them. Chris being the horror of war, Jake and Sherry being the horror of being pursued, and Leon and Helena's is more meant to be something for the classic Resident Evil fans. The story of which starts with the president of the time, Adam Benford, who is friends with Leon, planning to publicly disclose what happened with Raccoon City and the US government's involvement in that, which is a very interesting thing. But unfortunately, of course, it all goes awry when there is an outbreak in the town of Tall Oaks in the university where this was going to take place. He gets infected and becomes a zombie, and Leon is forced to shoot the president. That's how Resident Evil 6 begins. And then, yeah, from there, we kind of just go on a wacky, wild ride with Leon and Helena, and her sister Deborah, and the sort of story therein, which is related to the US governor, I guess, Simmons, who orchestrated this outbreak because he doesn't want the truth getting out, and we move on from there. But before we talk about the actual story, let's talk about the campaign from a gameplay perspective, the experience of actually playing it. How do we all feel about getting through Leon and Helena's version of Resident Evil 6? Steve, how do you feel about this one?
A slog. Genuinely. Like,
yeah.
It's strange, but especially the intro, because obviously it's got like tutorial training wheels on, and Leon and Helena, the opening 20 minutes are like just walking and talking and walking and talking until you get in an elevator with some dude and his daughter, and then the tragic outcome of his daughter zombifying and eating him. Yeah. Normal run-of-the-mill Resident Evil stuff. And then not long after that, you get chased into a subway and just shooting things and satchel charges, and it's trying to be like Raccoon City all over again. I don't know if you can hear the air quotes, everybody, but there was a bit more to Raccoon City than just mass panic and cars crashing and explosions. I mean, they even have a cop on his first day doing his best with an assault rifle. Fighting off a horde of monsters. The main problem I have is once the action starts in Leon's campaign, they just within the end of chapter 1, you've already seen all the monsters it's going to throw at you, excluding bosses. There are no real enemy comp surprises left. It's just hordes of zombies. And I play Dead Rising. I can do a horde of zombies now and again. Left 4 Dead and all that, but it gets very stale when it's just. Like, here's a swarm of guys. Here's a swarm of guys with hatchets. Here's a swarm of guys that turn into discount liquors with no tongue. The best part of a liquor, I might add. And then, what other zombie types you got? Screamer. I'm pretty sure that's from Left 4 Dead.
God, those things.
And a giant fat one that we call a Whopper. Like, good lord. The character drama as well. Like, Leon goes from mourning the president to... what do you want to do, Helena? Okay. For the majority of the plot, until Simmons backstabs him. So no, I can get why people will go, yeah, it's the best one, and I'll ask, what are you drinking? May I have some?
It pained me to hear you say that, because I know lots of people have said that. And again, I talked about this in the last one, how I used to think that maybe Chris's was my favourite, but that's certainly not the case now. And I did say in the last episode, I wondered if Leon and Ada's was the most superfluous. And now I'm kind of feeling justified, maybe that perspective, now that I've actually gone through it again. If nothing else, it's certainly the most inconsistent campaign of the lot. I thought Chapter 1 is okay. The really slow stuff doesn't really work at the beginning that you talked about, but I do think that it's not Raccoon City, but the chaos of Tall Oaks is kind of fun to look at and to take part in.
Final Fantasy 13 got tore apart for being like a corridor RPG. Yeah, Tall Oaks is just a street.
It really is. It's kind of like, if you don't think about it, the set piece is kind of fun. But yes, it doesn't hold any of the gravitas of Raccoon City, but I was highly amused by several pieces. My Leon is indestructible, apparently, because he got hit by a car and survived, got back up, and then got hit by an ambulance a minute later. It was absolutely hilarious. So at that point, I was laughing. But then the rest of it, Chapter 2 and 3 of Leon's campaign, is some of the most boring stuff in a Resident Evil game, period. Chapter 4 just goes on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
It's like a Resident Evil 4 homage kind of thing with the church and the churchyard, and then there's the bit where you're in the bloody mine with the minecart. Like, we have to do that over and over again. And I've said before about how I'm sick of mine carts and mine levels, but we have that. It's an underground cave system, which is also really overplayed, but it's really funny because they're like, wow, this has been intentionally designed this way. But then it all falls apart for no reason while they're navigating through it. It's just nonsense.
Leon and Helena must have fallen like 2,000 feet inside this cave underneath the cathedral.
It just goes on and on.
And then there's a giant zombie shark in there. No law is given. It's just there. I can accept the plane incident. That's probably the one of the more fun set pieces for me, when the plane's out of control, you're trying to control it and stuff. But what is going on underneath this cathedral?
Yeah,
this is madness.
Yes, absolutely that. I did have the plane bit. It's pretty cool and unique. Even if it ends with Leon landing a plane, which in itself is funny. There's the bit in that chapter with the quick time events where you have to land the plane. And it sucks because you're like, oh, you've missed a trick here, because you're told to look for an actual control, but to do that, you just press a button. Like, you don't have to navigate Leon's hand and find the button. So that could have been actually something unique and fun. No, it's just a regular quick time event. But yeah, this campaign felt never ending for me. James, how did you get on with the gameplay of Leon's campaign?
Oh boy.
Here we are again.
Yeah. So the beginning of this is super bombastic. This is meant to be, I just want to repeat, this is meant to be a survival horror game. But no, not once did I feel in danger.
Yeah.
I felt like I was pulled kicking and screaming through this whole game, through this whole podcast. Like,
Sorry.
I had no choice of my own in terms of the game. But in terms of the game, like, I'm doing all this with characters I do not give a hoot about. Like, I don't care about any of them. Why should I care? And we're constantly kind of baited and switched all the time. Like, when you have this kind of, especially with the Leon one, when you have this kind of writing mechanism, the whole point is that the result is good, or it's at least serviceable. The result was never good. It was never worth the wait. You're constantly told by Helena, "Hey, I'll tell you. Yeah, don't worry about it." You get to a point. But anyway, that's going into the story, which I'm going to leak into. But yeah, so it did have some moments of shine. Like there's the train station bit, which I died in several times, not fully understanding what was required of me. But those shadows on the walls as you get closer. Super great touch. And that was actually, I think that was the only time in this entire game, I'm talking throughout all the campaigns, where I felt a little bit of tension, was where I saw those shadows growing. That was, I have a fear anyway of things running at me, whether it be in movies or, I know I'm playing survival horror games, I know, guys. This is why I lose my mind when I'm playing them. But if something is running directly at me, then I have a fear response. And it was it was interesting to go through that. But that was the only time that happened. And it was a great touch, super short-lived, a bit like this game should have been, to be honest. Yeah, and then you're just thrown into these extremely highly animated action scenes about any substance, as you said earlier, Sai, or any kind of gravitas to them. There's this artificial weight, it seems, that the game constantly throws at you. And I said it, and it's especially prevalent in Leon's because nothing makes sense as you're going through it. Like, your brain is going, okay, you tell, yeah, okay, I'm doing the thing. But you don't know why you're doing the thing, and then you're thrown this superfluous kind of story or lines at you, and it's dumb. To talk about the actual, like, the mechanism, like the mechanics, the game mechanics, I want to talk really quick about Leon's dual pistol ability.
Oh yeah, we should probably mention that. Yeah,
that was a thing apparently.
It sure was.
But if anything stepped closer than a horizontal Helena in front of me, then I got my shotgun out. Like, because the accuracy of them was rubbish. Mm-hmm. Like, but it's also ironic that Leon gets a whole ability to himself, despite how absolutely crap it is. Well, everyone else gets nothing. Like, no one else gets a special ability. It's only Leon who gets his dual pistols.
I think certain characters get like unique weapons and stuff like that.
Right, yeah.
But I think that's the logic. But yes, it's also one of those many things in this game, as we've said, that just like, it doesn't tell you about that. It just actually expects you to know that you press Y on the pistols.
Yeah. And that's another thing is like
triangle or whatever.
Yeah, the onboarding is bad. I do love a game that tries to immerse you into the narrative while also doing a tutorial. But this game seemed to forget the actual tutorial part.
Yeah.
Like, it just didn't, like, you had all that time. And Steve earlier on said you got like 15, 20 minutes of walking. You cannot move any faster because Leon's legs haven't turned on yet, right? So you have to just, like, crawl everywhere. You're going through this massive, like, 2-acre long hall. Like, it's, right at the start. And you're like, during all that, you could have explained how the game worked. I thought that's what was going to happen. And how things work, how the menu works. This is an introduction to the game. Like this, for a lot of people. I mean, it was to me, including the prologue. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, just all of this kind of, to just kind of rolls up, morphs into one, and it's very telling, of all these issues, like of the overall game. It's like I don't think even half of this game was made like to any kind of standard. Like and Leon's campaign being the introductory campaign just makes it worse, because you should be explaining all this stuff right at the start.
That slow beginning is not there for any like logic. It's literally there because they've gone, right, we're going to make one that's for the classic fans. You know what classic fans like? Slow walking segments, apparently. Like that's their idea of horror in 2012, I guess. A bit where you can't mission. Walk. Yeah, right. It's just also, while we're on the tutorial thing, yes, there's the tutorial version prologue, but then you have to do it again in Leon's campaign. It's slightly different this time, but you have to do it again. You have to do the helicopter QuickTime events from the prologue again. And the prologue ends with Leon being like, back for more, like it's teasing something. And then when you get to that bit in the campaign, it's like the most nothing burger. It's the guy you just fought. He's back again. Like this guy, Simmons, this character, which we'll talk about over the course of the podcast, someone they've not bothered to build up properly at all. I really thought that the Simmons stuff went on a lot longer, like throughout Leon's campaign, but it's confined to chapter 4 and 5. It is just the last two chapters, which, talking about this being the classic Resident Evil thing, and chapter 1 almost attempting to do something in that vein and then completely losing its head. By chapter 4 and 5, it's just all out insanity. You just get so numb to it. None of it's impressive. None of it's interesting. It's just so boring. Let's talk about the story then, I guess, of Leon's campaign, as I sort of gave a brief overview of what it was. For the first part, Leon shoots the president is such a funny setup, man. I mean, as the kids would say these days, it's so unserious. Like, if Resident Evil 6 was leaning into how stupid it was, it probably wouldn't be so bad. Because, like, that sounds like a funny idea for a silly game. But Resident Evil 6 is not a silly game. It's taking itself too seriously most of the time, at least as far as I can tell. So it just becomes this hilarious thing, like Leon dramatically shooting the president and then moping about it for the campaign, whilst indeed being dragged along by the most boring Resident Evil character perhaps of all time in Helena. Helena sucks, Deborah sucks. We're going to talk about characters later, but Jesus, don't shoot my sister who's clearly a monster. It's awful. It's so awful. I will say, I have notes about this campaign, more so than perhaps others, because stuff happens. It's just not good stuff. Kelsey, how did you feel about the story of Leon and Helena's campaign?
Well, I'm glad you didn't make me talk about the gameplay of Leon's
campaign.
Oh,
crap, I didn't. Well, do both. Sorry, do both.
No, don't, because listen to me. All of you said, all of you just said what I got written down. So I really don't need to go over it because, and the key things that I wanted to touch on is two of you touched on. One is obviously the opening section, but the Deborah stuff, like that chapter and that underground chapter going on and on on is inexcusable. And then you got to do it again when you play as Ada. And it's just like, no. And yeah, you've all touched on it. I mean, the giant fish as well is absurd. They're traveling at like 200 miles an hour. They should have been on the other side of the planet by the time that section was over. But yeah, anyway. Okay, right. Leon and Helena, their dynamic, which James, I think you sort of touched on. It's like, it's so confusing. And I think Steve, you did as well, because there's this weird, they constantly just look lost at each other. They're kind of like, neither of them are really, they cave to each other, and then one takes charge, and then the other caves to the other, and then the other takes charge. Their relationship is so unclear, and this dynamic is unclear, and they both look lost. They both don't really look like they know where they're going and what they're doing, and it just feels like they were unable to decide who was going to be in control in this storyline for Leon's campaign. And Leon feels continuously unlikable as a government agent, and I don't think this isn't just confined to this game. It's like with the movies and stuff. I've never liked this role for him. He's always working for the man, and it's just, although the president in this game is supposed to be, they were gonna take responsibility and admit to what their involvement in Raccoon City and stuff like that. I just think Leon, time and time again, he's constantly blinded by his duty, which just makes him boring and unlikable. I will say the sort of weird little thematic connections. This game multiple times tries to connect to the other games, to RE2 and to RE4. At least these two campaigns do. And you think, okay, Leon having to deal with just shooting these authority figures. You know what? It's mimicking his first day as a rookie cop, really.
Right.
And it's like, here he is now at the top end of the scale, having to shoot the president. It's like he can't get away from all this stuff of Raccoon City. And it's just, yeah, he's like, what is it? He says, whatever you desire, sir, I'm with you. And it just, he feels, he's not really somebody I want to root for. So in terms of that part of the story and where it throws you in, like, I do not like that. That moment of him killing the president doesn't really do anything for me. I don't like them framing the president as a likable person. I think that's a reach. I think I've always felt that way my entire life. So it's just, yeah, it's this weird view of kind of American society and stuff like this. But anyway, yeah, and so the dynamic is confusing, and the Helena stuff, it feels like they tried to give Helena a story with Deborah, which is done and dusted by the middle of the game, and it's very... I don't know. I guess they just don't devote enough time for it, because then they've got to move on to Simmons, which, like you say, is truncated to effectively a chapter and a half of the game as well. And although I do like Simmons as a villain, and I think we talked about this on the villains episode. There's just because there's so little of him, it's just wasted. It's a wasted opportunity. They do this time and time again. His monstrous transformations are kind of nonsensical, and it's like nanomachines at play, and that's like virus talk stuff, which maybe we'll get into. But his dialogue's hokey. That he speaks in one-liners a bit like Leon does. His final death is like unintentionally funny, and it's just the tone is kind of all over the place with him. Even the ending moments with Helena and Ada just kind of feel flat, and then it's all undermined by Leon's comment at the end as well. And it's just, I don't know, like you in the previous episode, Si, talked about how there's some story things in this game where it's like there is some weirdly good things they're trying to touch on in this game.
Yeah,
there's
totally.
some gold here, trying to continue and sort of wrap up the fallout of Raccoon City and Wesker's legacy, Ada's mystique, and we'll talk about Ada more in a minute as well. These things about like doppelgangers and corruption, it's just, there's some cool stuff in here, but the script is so bad, the character dynamics are so bad, the cutscenes are all very short as well, because it's so focused on this rip-roaring action gameplay. It's just hard to care. There's no real development for the characters. Leon feels like, as I say, the same unlikable government agent he's felt like for the past 15 years. And it's just... It was painful playing through this, as if the gameplay wasn't bad enough. It's just the story is, it's really, really difficult. There are some, like, and this isn't even story. I suppose it's just part of playing it. Like a lot of the NPC chatter, like I like that sort of stuff. It adds some kind of humanity and heart. You hear them talking about, some of them are injured and stuff like that. That stuff is, you don't really get that in other Resident Evil games. I kind of like that. There is also a really cool section in. When you're defending at the gas station or the bar or something, there's a very like Romero section where you team up with all the locals and they're all shouting at each other and talking to each other. It's like that in terms of world building and stuff. I was like, oh, that's nice. I like that. And that feels like that's well thought out and fun, but it's just such a tiny part of the story that, because the main story itself is boring. And obviously it connects a lot to Ada, and I'll bring it back round to that stuff in a minute, but it's so difficult to enjoy Leon and Helena because it's such a slog to get through, like you talked about. Their dynamic is non-existent, and the way they just kind of stare at each other and kind of don't know who's in charge. It's all a bit hard to latch on to.
Yeah, you're absolutely spot on there. They have absolutely no connection with each other. Like, there's no feeling between them at all as partners or whatever. There's just nothing interesting there, which is even more apparent because I think, some of the stuff that the game does do well is that Chris and Piers have got at least an interesting story together and bounce off each other well. And obviously, Jake and Sherry, we kind of put some praise on them in the last episode because those characters are, in terms of how they interact with each other and the effects they have on each other, is really interesting. Yeah, Leon and Helena they feel like they're kind of facing different walls back to back, not really interacting with each other, just kind of going through the motions here. The Romero thing's absolutely spot on, by the way. I think even in that bar or gun shop or whatever it is, one guy runs out the window to save himself and then gets killed while everyone's yelling "Don't do it" or whatever, which is so of the dead. This isn't a story thing, but I wanted to throw it in here because I don't know when else I'm going to say it. Immediately after that, whoever survives, they're all they get in a bus, like a school bus, and there's you have a fight with a whopper who's lifted out the bus or whatever and stuff. Anyway, I really couldn't stop laughing about how this outbreak that has literally just happened within the last 30 minutes to an hour, and the town's gone to hell so quickly, by the way. This school bus, for whatever reason, just completely missing upholstery. No seats whatsoever. It's just completely empty because of the gameplay benefit of you being able to roll around in a big metal tube and on your back shooting zombies that are coming in. It makes no sense. I thought it was so damn funny that they were just in an empty bus. Why would this be here? There's just no thought to it whatsoever. Steve, how did you feel about the story of Leon's campaign?
Oh, this is going to be a couple of pins and grenades. So, first things first. Why is the president a different president from anyone we are meant to be somewhat quote-unquote attached to? Adam Benford is not in any way related to Ashley Graham, the president's daughter, the last time we spent time with Leon. I feel like that was a misstep. Any kind of connection, even if it's just a case of, the words of, I'm sorry, Ashley, I shot your dad, something. Bit more interesting than just someone who is apparently important to Leon that we are told about. You follow that up with Leon being basically carrot and stick dragged by Helena to save her sister. Now, Helena is voiced by Laura Bailey, who was previously in Resident Evil Degeneration as Angela Miller. She could have potentially been a more compelling foil because obviously she's been through the trauma of having lost her brother, and if they had a sibling, last one to keep alive, there's motivation there, as opposed to just, I can't tell you anything, let's go to the cathedral, bye. I have the personality of a brick, bye. Oh, what's that weird stuff on a tape? Never mind, let's save my sister. Oh, Simmons bad, let's go to China. Okay! It's a bit... What? Why? Huh? Who? And all the while, we've got Simmons with his weird fixation of, sexually charged BOWs. We'll talk more about this in the BOW section, but that man has problems. As an actual, overarching villain, like everyone else has said already, no real screen time is given. You're just told, he is big and evil and he's a scheming man. Look, he has a ring. Ooh. That's not really going to do it for me. Oh, we've made him unkillable. Oh, that was a prank by his evil experiment that's betrayed him. Cool, great. Why does Helena dress like a maitre d'? As a government agent, that's a bit strange. Just throwing it out there, Capcom. That was a very odd design choice. And then discount Lara Croft in China. Okay, fair enough, right? Who am I to judge? Generally speaking, though, as an action romp, there are fun set pieces, and it's mostly when Leon is interacting with characters from the previous games. For example, the fight with Chris, the phone call exchange with Chris before the bomb goes off, I thought was at least reasonably charged. Mostly on Roger Craig Smith's end, but even then, Leon's like, we're all right, everything's going to be okay, we'll figure it out. And, of course, interact with Sherry, but we talked about this all in the last podcast, so can't really give it much credit. We see Leon interact with Ada, and where it's due, there is both sides of a conversation. You only see one-on-one, I believe, on Beach playthrough, on Leon's playthrough and Ada's playthrough. And when you put that cutscene together, it's rather cute, because like Leon is just completely clueless as to what the hell's going on, and Ada says he has no idea what's going on, does he? You know, it's like that is a beautiful moment between those two characters. But why is he paired up with Helena then? If it's all about Ada, it should have been, you know, maybe I'm reading too much into this, but that would have been the character I would have paired him with and made it so that they are like, you know, like a, what's the unholy alliance, I think the term is, when two forces that shouldn't work together are working together. You know, Autobots and Decepticons to fight something else. As a result, we're just left with Leon gets led by the nose, fights some bad guy, goes home, hits on women, fails. Repeat next time.
The ring thing's really funny as well because they try to make a big deal of Simmons' ring, and Ada gets it and gives it to Leon and all this stuff. And you see that through the two campaigns, which opens a door, which is meant to touch on the fact that there's like a Resident Evil universe Illuminati, and Simmons is part of the family, which I think gets mentioned in dialogue once, where he just goes, "My family," and they like fly away from him. He's like, "Nah, leave him. He's a monster now. We're not bothering with this." And that's about it. It just goes absolutely nowhere. It's so weird. There's just another random thing that's in here for a line in the game that's already overstuffed as it is. Perfect example being the existence of Helena and Deborah when it probably should have been Leon and Ada. You want to make Resident Evil 6 a big... I know it was kind of pre-Avengers, but the Resident Evil Avengers kind of crossover, mashup, everything's going on. This is the be-all and end-all of Resident Evil. But and Leon and Ada together would have been an event you must sit and play this game kind of experience. But no, they kind of bottled it and added in a wet rag for him to spend his campaign with instead. James, any thoughts on the campaign of Leon and the wet rag?
Wet rag. Right, so my story and characters is just gonna, because we've been kind of rolling them into one, so I'm just gonna.
Oh yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, so nowhere more, and I'm gonna say a big word here. Nowhere more does the incongruence of this game highlight itself more than in the Leon campaign and his characters.
Yes.
None of it makes sense. From Leon and Chris pointing guns at each other and then just being chill. Like, oh, okay, cool. The person you're chasing just killed, was responsible for Chris's team all dying, but you chill now. Cool. To Leon mentioning, don't like sewers, to Helena, like it was some kind of dig at her for some reason.
Like, shouldn't have signed up for a Resident Evil game.
I don't like it was. Dumb. It was so dumb because it's like this was the first time she said, "Oh yeah, I'll tell you later when things are a little bit calm down." Right? It's because he was like, "Don't like sewers." I think the delivery was probably, I don't know what the intent was, but I think maybe the delivery there from Matt was bad, but also the writing's terrible. So it's probably both. Everything in this game, in terms of the story, even the characters, everything feels like a mechanism, a cog in a machine to move to the next act rather than any actual proper narrative storytelling. Like the wild thing as well is I do feel like the performance is overall actually pretty good by Laura and Matt. Like, in terms of just looking at what they're delivering at you, like, but the material is crap, right? So, like, Laura's like kind of emotional outbursts with Helena were really well done. I didn't feel anything because the story was crap. The writing was bad, right? But I mean, Laura's always been very good at kind of that kind of stuff. So that's one, like, +1 I can give it. Maybe 2, but yeah, the writing, direction for all of these characters and story, incredibly contrived, bullet pointed, rushed, and it seemed to just, it's like, how many tropes can we fit into a chapter, at every turn? And they were trying to beat themselves with every chapter with the Leon and Helena. I almost said Leon and Claire then. I don't know why I said that. But yeah, it's trash, man. It's so bad. I'm so tired.
We haven't even mentioned boss fights yet.
No, I mean, we've got a section on BOWs coming up if we want to do it there, I guess. Let's I guess move on from Leon if everyone has said everything they want to say about that campaign, and we'll move on to the last one. And now, reading the file Scorched Earth from Resident Evil 6, Park VA, who you can find on Twitter at ParkVAOfficial.
Operation Basilisk Terminate has been executed just as planned. But this time, it won't be covered up like it was for Raccoon City. Everyone will know that the president was killed by bioterrorism, and the government had no choice but to clean it up. The whole world will know the threat posed by bioterrorist organizations and shall be in awe of the country that stood up to protect its people and fight this threat. America. Now we've shown them who the real global power is. This is how things should be, and now balance will be achieved in the world, with the family at the helm.
Which is Ada's campaign, originally unlockable when the game first came out, but patched to be available from the beginning due to complaints.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, there you go. Now you know. So you can start with this if you like, but I think, the intention of this campaign is kind of meant to be the one that ties everything a little bit together. It's, she appears throughout all the other campaigns in some fashion, or at least Carla does. But this gives you a better idea of what's going on with this whole Ada situation and the fact that there is a clone. And I guess to some degree, perhaps the idea being that you play through the other campaigns afterwards and you're able to recognize when it's Ada and when it's Carla, although you can do that anyway because, as I made sort of light of in the intro, you can tell when it's Carla because she's wearing blue. That's pretty much what it comes down to. Everyone figured out that it was a clone through the trailers, by the way, just purely based on that, but there you go. In terms of what Ada's story is, frankly, couldn't really tell you. It's Ada Wong. She's making up as she goes along. She discovers that there is a clone of her, and I guess goes to take her down and clear her name if you want. But yeah, so we jump now into the Ada Wong campaign. And I will say for one thing, and I remembered this being the case, so I wouldn't say looking forward to playing this, but slightly less miserable about going through this as this was shorter. And yes, happy to say that all of these chapters fly by in about half the time compared to anyone else. So it's definitely got that going for it. But how do we feel about the gameplay of the Ada campaign? James, let's start with you.
Sorry, yes, I'm here. Gameplay, right?
Gameplay of Ada Wong.
Right. So, yeah, I agree. Like, in contrast to Leon's campaign, Ada, it kind of starts okay, question mark? Like, it's, and I mean right at the start as well, like the slow moving, stalking through the level, sniping off Carmen Riders, crawling through vents.
They are as well.
They really are. Like,
they really are.
Solving puzzles, like it was nice. It gave me a nice warm feeling for a moment. The sneak puzzle, that the room where you have to go to the four corners and
yes,
cycle through. The snake puzzle actually led me to take screenshots and make notes on Steam, which was kind of cool. It wasn't a very complicated puzzle, but it was still cool that it made me do that. The bow gun felt really powerful to use, like really powerful. If you aim it at someone's head, it felt good. It was nice because basically before this point, we'd all just been fighting against bullet sponges the entire time. So like being able to just aim a gun at a head and it die was actually quite nice. For once, Yeah, and at least until like the mid to late part of the game and like campaign anyway, and that's where the game started to kind of fall apart in the gameplay sense for me. Incredibly samey. All monsters we'd already tackled before. Nothing's new or evolved other than Come Carla. It came.
You sure did.
It became. Yeah, the other thing I noticed, and it kind of gave me a bit of a headache, was the game became a bit of a crawl simulator.
Oh my god!
And it was not fun.
Well, you didn't like that bit, James.
I hated that bit. It was
That's
awful
a shame because here it is again 30 minutes later.
I tell you, the worst thing was the camera movement. I mean, it was slow, and we'd already spoken about this, but the camera movement was doing my head in. But yeah, like, in essence, though, it was this whole campaign was just Ada retracing the steps of Leon, which meant also retracing through areas, boss fights, major events again. But this time in a different suit, and that was really lame. In like a game that already felt super anemic, despite how long it was and how much content they could have put into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's really funny actually. There's like, I don't have any notes on chapter 1, which is the submarine thing, but I mean, yeah, that was kind of the most interesting one because it was the sort of self-contained Ada-only exclusive sort of thing. Everything else was inevitably leading to a crossover with another character, usually, which, yeah, is frustrating that you have to redo certain bits. Some of it was okay, some of it less so. I did think that it was really funny in Chapter 2 that Ada takes a much more immediate route to the whole Deborah situation compared to Leon and Helena, who, as we said before, travel for miles and miles underground, whereas Ada just seems to jump down a single hole and she just eventually just gets there, which is really funny. All the faffing we did earlier for nothing. But yeah, encountering puzzles was a pleasant surprise, I guess. Some of it's kind of nonsense though. This is really picking holes, but there's a puzzle it's chapter 2 where you have to chase and kill 2 specific enemies to get MacGuffins off them to open a door. It's like a tooth and an eyeball or something. And the way that the game works is that you can see them running away from you up to a certain point, and you're like, they're over there, I'm close. And then they open a door and they move to the next area. Simple stuff. The problem is, of course, is that you can shoot at them from that distance, and they're just invulnerable. Of course, they're like, I could kill them from here if the game let me. It's just stupid, dumb stuff like that. Which is extra funny because the game gives you the rifle in that chapter, so it's almost like you're telling me to do that, but it's just stupid bollocks like that they really should have thought about. And the other one with this, and I don't know if this is because it's meant to be a post-game campaign, but there was so much video gamey stuff in this one where it was like, and I don't know if this was the case throughout and I just didn't notice it, maybe I just noticed it more in Ada Wong's campaign because it was more prevalent, but just so many examples of like, kill the enemies and the door opens. I don't think we really had a lot of that in Resident Evil where doors magically open after everything has died. Maybe occasionally in the more action-focused games, but it was all over the place in Ada Wong's campaign, which was kind of a shame. Like, Kelsey, you're right when you say it's arcadey action, so maybe I should be more forgiving, but I don't know. I'm in my pick and holes era, apparently. Speaking of which, I don't think this is a small hole to pick. I think this one's infuriating. Chapter 4 had several, hope you saw this unexplained gameplay mechanic coming, otherwise you die. Oh, okay. We're talking about crawling around in the vents. There's one bit where you crawl around a certain set of vents, and if you fire a weapon at the enemies that are in the vents, the vents collapse and you fall through and die. Game doesn't tell you that that's going to happen. It just puts an enemy in front of you and says, all right, enjoy. You back away and shoot it from a safe distance, or don't shoot it. Like, oh, okay. Cool.
Can I add something onto that?
Yes, please.
Well? Like the other thing I put in my notes, and I forgot to put it into my end notes, was the amount of times, and it was especially prevalent during Ada's, but there was one particular scene where you jump down from a vent or you jump down from somewhere and you are immediately shot. And
yes,
I'm sorry,
yeah.
Right? You have no choice, no agency in what's happening. Like, the whole point of video games is to avoid being shot, and you had no choice but to be shot. Mm-hmm. Like, and I know this sounds like a nitpick, but the joy of gaming is interactivity and agency, and these kind of things, these little things like this, can really pull you like to the side and just make you not love this kind of stuff.
Yeah, totally. And the other one, I've said this before, I think, is that. And this is my last one from me. The final quote-unquote boss fight with Carla, where she's a giant face. I know the game shows you quite obviously, but the fact that it suddenly goes, okay, now you have to shoot through her face with everything you've got and hope that you can do it. I didn't understand what was right and what was wrong. Sometimes it just wasn't making the impact I needed to make a hole in her face enough to shoot the canisters on the other side. Like, sometimes it's working, sometimes it's not. I don't know. I just thought that was incredibly frustrating. Steve, how do you feel about the gameplay of Ada's segment?
Well, first things first, we finally know who she's working for. She's got a sidekick, clearly from MI5 because he's a gent.
That's it. Adrian Gent.
Yeah, sorry. Genuinely, Ada comes across as kind of unhinged because she's talking to herself the entire time. She's quipping to nobody. Now, I know this is like action movie nonsense and stuff, but at least when Marcus and Dom do it, they're with each other. You know, it's not just randomly, I'm going to just spout one-liners for the sake of my own, levity? Mechanically, she's got some quote-unquote stealth, which is, you know, despite the fact you're loudly, like, scissor-kicking a man through a wall, that's a stealth takedown. Again, I don't know if you can hear the air quotes, but they're there. This is clearly the most adventurous of the campaigns in terms of what they want to try and do and push the rules and mechanics of the system for RE6. That all being said, though, generally the only takeaways I have are let's just keep moving forward until we get a phone call. Excluding the China chapter, which, to be fair, does something a bit different. You're providing secret hidden sniper cover for a sequence you would have played as Jake and Sherry earlier, and I thought that was one of the cutest sequences of the entire thing. What a surprise! Jake and Sherry bit is the bit that I like the most. That is probably the best parts when Ada's being quote-unquote how she's kind of meant to be, that unseen hand in the background, you know, that quote-unquote super spy, secret agent, not running around with an Uzi blasting Black Manta knockoffs or Kamen Rider guys, or fighting off hordes of monsters until a door unlocks, as you say. Sneaking through vents while Chris and Pierce do stuff at a very, very slow pace. Meanwhile, here's Ada's Peach. Oh, okay. You know, I actually do appreciate the boss fight with Carla, because the whole, like, coming across as like she's been basically cloned and turned into a sex object by a madman, and that sex object is trying to kill her while drenched in creamy white semen. I don't know how else to say that. You know, it's just it's there. It's there. I actually like the fact that you have to shoot a hole through the face and shatter the visage to kill it, and even then, I'm not sure if it's killed it. But I can understand why it's not telegraphed very well. Like, as all of the bosses in RE6, you know, I guess Ustanak getting punched in the face is probably more cathartic, but it's the one that's the most, like, narratively consistent through to it's her doppelganger, and it's a, you know, there's a reason why it's there, and I can see why it is what it is. That being said, the main thing, other than all the gameplay stuff, is I actually really dig the scene at the end where it's almost like we've seen how Ada is talking to herself the entire time. Now watch her really get unhinged. And that bit where she's probably not earned the whole shooting all the lab down with an Uzi and grenades and stuff and blowing it up, but it does, much like a lot of RE6, it looks kind of cool at least.
Yeah. Which makes a change. Give Ada something cool to do for once. Kelsey, how did you feel about the gameplay of Ada's campaign?
Well, I managed to not pull out my own tooth and eyeball by the end of it, so that's something. Now, I do like chapter 1, tight hallway battles. Oh, wait, first of all, you're by yourself. That's important. Obviously, unless you play it co-op with nondescript agent man, you're by yourself, which I've enjoyed so much more because it's halting you a lot less. You can actually walk through a door without waiting for someone most of the time. But yeah, so you're on the sub, tight hallway battles. The bow weapon is cool. Like James said, the slow reload is really annoying, but like the sinking sub escape is really fun, like with the forced perspective changes. And it can be, if you're not in the right mood, that stuff could drive you up the wall pretty quickly. But I really like the whole trying to climb up the ladders really quickly with the water rushing underneath you and how it tips on its side. And I did sort of find myself having to think about what I was doing, because so much of this game, and James said this on the first one, is you just run. You just run through. It's a straight line. You can run past pretty much everything. You don't even have to kill everything. There's quite a few times here in Ada's campaign where you cannot do that. You have to stop. You have to navigate your way through the sub, which is turned on its side. You get to chapter 2 where there's some gothic atmosphere and puzzles and candlelit hallways with crest puzzles and hanging bodies and trapdoors and stuff. It's like, oh, is this might actually be a Resident Evil game that I'm playing here. So it's sort of a few bits there that are not awful. But then obviously after that, you have to redo the Deborah section, which, as I've said, is just painful, absolutely painful that you got to do that again. And then Chapter 3, running through the streets is kind of dull. The organic chainsaw enemy BOW is kind of silly but interesting. That reminded me of Scorn a little bit. And the zip lining sort of anime style again, like it's so anime, this game. It's so over the top. There's so much flying around and physics defying, which is just, arcade nonsense. And it's not really what I wanted to be playing. I think of something like Separate Ways on the remake of playing as Ada. This is infinitely better and more enjoyable gameplay. I did kind of like the sniping section where you're helping Jake and Sherry. Steve, you just said that was your favourite bit, right?
Yeah.
Like, obviously, you help them with Ustanak, and then you got to snipe as well to stop that the chainsaw enemy. It just felt like I was actually inhabiting Ada a bit more there rather than the others where you are, you're just running through and just shooting. Whereas like, oh no, I'm playing as Ada now and, using my zipline and using my sniper rifle, and it kind of works. And it is shorter, like you said, which is nice and forgiving. But then you move on to chapter 4 and you've got the passcode hunt, which is just a repetition of Leon hunting for the keys. And it's just more unimaginative stuff there. The Carla fight, it's different, I guess. It's just, you want to feel like, is this their little nod to Silent Hill with the giant face, maybe? But the same thing happened with me, Si. Like, and I've played through this before, but even I was struggling to remember what I was supposed to do to shoot the hole in the face, because you can't just shoot the hole in the face. You have to shoot both the eyeballs first, right? Or am I imagining that? And then she's weak enough to shoot through the face or something. At least that's what I thought I was
That's
happening.
how I understood it eventually, yeah.
Yeah. So it's a bit of a slog. And then, like, shooting from a helicopter can always be fun, but it just overstays its welcome. It's like, okay, I'm here supporting them shooting, and then 20 minutes later, you're still shooting in the helicopter in the Simmons boss fight. And it's like, there is so many times in this game where, obviously there's a huge budget for this game and lots of people working on it, but they had so much stuff to do and so many different things to build that there's quite a few very obvious points where they're like, we have to just fill time here, just reuse that and just make use of that again and again. And that's why some of the sort of, the structural nature of the gameplay repeats what Leon does. And, there's so much helicopter shooting and there's so much vehicle stuff and all this in the other campaign. So this repetition is the biggest letdown of Ada's campaign, because the stuff at the beginning, I think, is quite fun in the submarine. And despite the... oh no, you got to dodge the spotlight sort of trope that's in, every other video game ever made, which I just completely ignored. I just got spotted and ended up just shooting people because it's far easier to do. The crawling is a pain in the ass. And speaking of ass, obviously the camera angle is completely egregious. Like, it's, even by Resident Evil standards, it's like, what are we doing here? What are we doing with Ada crawling through this vent? It's so ridiculous, the position they put the character in. And what else? Yeah, just, again, repeating the building stuff at the end. I'm doing the same boss fight that I already did with Leon, and it ends on like a massive damp squib. And yeah, it has all the other issues that the general gameplay has, but of all I've played of RE6, I actually think chapter 1 and 2 of Ada's are quite solid, and then chapter 3 with the sniping is kind of fun as well. So I got to give it credit where it's due. It's just a shame that it's all under the skin of this of the rest of the game and where it exists.
I have to agree with that. I think it does have some of the strongest points, but then unfortunately it just becomes a bit of just like more of the same. Which is so funny because, as you said there, you're now like, 20 whatever hours into this game if you play the whole lot. And especially if you played it at launch. Or generally speaking, I think people will play Ada's campaign last because it's meant to be that way. So this game ends with, a protracted helicopter segment that amounts essentially to point the big cursor at the monster and hold the trigger for several minutes on end. Followed by a boss fight that you've already done.
Yeah.
Like the Carla boss fight is the end of chapter 4. After that, you fight Simmons alongside Leon at the end of chapter 5. knowing already that this isn't Simmons' death. Like, he gets another boss fight later, which is mad. Like, this is the end of the game. It's just bizarre. This is meant to be like the unlockable last story that explains everything. Oh, what a weird way to end. Speaking of which, then, let's talk about the story of Ada's campaign, because, just to go back around to what was said previously, first of all, I know lots of people kind of point and laugh at Horizon for the same thing. Aloy talks to herself a lot. She's a lot more charming to me than Ada, who, like, I get it, you're cool and mysterious, but there's no one else around. You don't need to continue being, I'm cool and mysterious. She'd just be saying stuff. She's not saying anything, she's just saying stuff, but it doesn't mean anything. It's so weird and so funny. She find out she's been cloned and she has like zero reaction to it because she's a zero personality trash character. Steve, how do you feel about the story of Ada Wong in Resident Evil 6? The game that arguably should be the Ada Wong game.
She's kind of she's lured into a honey trap and then proceeds to just waddle through it until the trap explodes itself.
Waddle through it. Perfect.
Carla
She's
lures
just
Ada
bumbling
into a
around.
submarine and then, okay, bye. She didn't have a follow-up plan after Ada escaped submarine, so Ada's just like, I'll see what's going on in Tall Oaks for some reason. And then, alright, Leon's going to China. I guess I will too. What's Chris doing on this boat then? That's interesting. I'll go back to China now. I've got my helicopter on. There's a secret lab. The end. Bye. Okay, Ada, you might as well have not even been here. Why? I mean, I get it. You were the victim of some weirdo cloning you, and then that clone went insane. But also, why did you bother? She could have phoned it in. She could have just called, Krauser up. I'm assuming he's somehow still alive. No one dies in this franchise. It's... Her actions are completely for the sake of Ada felt like it. Does that not ring true to anyone else? It just feels like she just goes there and don't get wrong. The exchange where she basically says that she's repaying the kindness that Birkin and Wesker showed her, which is ironic because she's saving their kids, opposed to trying to harm them or anything like that. Yeah. And then there's the really cute rescue where she saves Sherry, but also it's kind of her fault that chainsaw thing was stalking them in the first place. So I guess it's
so true.
It's fair's fair and all that. Other than that, it's just, hi, I fancied a trip and fancied shooting monsters. Also, hi Simmons, here's a helicopter, I'll shoot you now.
It's so dumb. The best part is, right, okay, so I think there's also a chance if you wanted to talk about Resident Evil 6's plot and how poorly explained the whole actual stuff is that's going on. In terms of the game, it's just a series of set pieces or whatever, but the actual story that is largely takes place off screen and is poorly explained about who Simmons is, his obsession with Ada, his desire to use someone that works under him to clone Ada, and it goes horribly wrong, the origins of the C virus. None of this stuff is, of course, shown on screen because it can't be, because it's like an insane action game that doesn't have the time to do this. So the poorly explained discovery of Carla and who she is, that she's actually underneath the sort of Ada clone mask. And then immediately after that, literally immediately after that, Ada walks out to a balcony and sees Carla fall to her death. The villain is this, but oh, she's dead, never mind. It's just come on, what a complete goddamn mess.
I mean, it would have been more interesting if, the horrible reveal, turns out you've been playing as the fake the entire time, and the real Ada Wong was the crazy one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, would it have been a horrible payoff? Maybe, but it would have made more sense. Maybe I'm reaching a bit. I'm trying to reach for things that aren't there. But it's just...
trying to find something interesting.
Yeah. I mean, Ada doesn't even face any real seriousness as crisis of self seeing it. Or, Carla, we don't even see her. She thinks through and through that she's Ada Wong, even though she's doing all of these, to put it lightly, unhinged things.
As a revenge for being treated the way she was. So she knows she's not Ada Wong. Yeah. It's nonsense. Kelsey, thoughts on Ada's campaign story-wise?
Right, I'm going to really, really try my best to try and give the story some ground, okay? Because when I finished playing, I was like, I just didn't understand what's going on in this game. Like, I mean, I did on the surface level, but I went and watched a few YouTube videos and stuff and read some stuff to try to educate myself on, is there a story here and what do people think about it? And what do people think about Ada? And generally, like, you know, for a lot of the game, it's the same sort of opinions, and it's the action nonsense and stuff. And there's people that touch on things like James Bond and things like that with Ada, which I sort of see, but If I was to try and defend Ada's story, and I've talked about how some of that gameplay was what I felt was strongest parts of RE6, and strongest is such a weird word to use because the rest of it is so poor. But I'm not going to argue. I'm just going to float the notion that there is maybe something here with Ada's story, because she's always continuously been this, you know, this meme of a character that we know, and this grey area, this ambiguous nature of who she is and what she's up to and who's she working for. And now, in this game, she finds that all being used against her, because she's got Simmons controlling her image, you know, to the world, framing her with this clone that he's obsessed with, and he's obsessed with controlling Ada. Mm-hmm. And you've got Leon, who, is she interested in and is she not? But now any kind of relationship she can have with Leon is being, again, hurt by this clone and this other person that's controlling her image. And you've got Leon and Ada sort of constantly going around each other and circling each other, but they can't meet in the middle because, you know, their goals are different and their ideas are different. And she is sort of stuck in the middle of all these other plans with all these other people. And I don't want to, dare I say it, do I feel sorry for her in this? I think Ada is the most sympathetic character in the game. And
I get that.
I think this is one of the few times where I'm like, despite the awful quips, the awful one, she's been taking so many pages out of Leon's little notebook that he keeps with his quips that he says to himself. And it's just by osmosis, she's absorbing Leon's quips. It's so egregious. That's so bad, all of that stuff. But the overall themes, and you, again, Sai, where you talked about other stuff in this game, there is some gold in here. I just think this game suffers from so much thought went into it that it collapses on itself. But I do think they really tried hard to put Ada in this position where it's like, no, she's not going to be, you know, I suppose... I can't really think of a better way to say it, but to be completely trodden down on by all the men around her and things like that, by Simmons, by Leon. It's like, no, she can do it by herself. She does have her own plans. She's at war with... Leon's got his ideals of, you know, the doing it the right way, and he wants the government to be good and stuff, and she's more clandestine and kind of pragmatic in everything she does. And that's all fully on display here. And it's... No, everything's working against her, and she can't be with Leon. She can't complete her mission because she's being framed. And then she's now having to literally fight a twisted version of herself that's there, you know, through her own doing, really, because of her behavior of the last 20 years, possibly. So there are lots of interesting questions and thoughts about Ada in this. And she's not a character that I would ever really say I've considered myself a fan of. I did really enjoy her in RE4 Remake and how she was presented there. But yeah, despite everything that goes on in RE6, it's like there's sort of something here with Ada, and maybe the short nature of the story is something that I enjoyed more, or something like it's less convoluted. But yeah, I like the doppelganger stuff. I like that she is by herself, and it's like we're really properly from the first time trying to see them put a lot of effort into that. It's just kind of flattened by a lot of the chaos and the bombastic stuff around it. What else did I think? Yeah, and I don't know where I read this, but it might have been one of the YouTube videos I was watching. Somebody was trying to equate her to Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, because obviously there's a whole section in the game that's very gothic as well, and that's gothic literature. And, you know, you've got Carla and you've got Ada. It's like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And it's like, yeah, it's just there's lots of little references that you can make. And I don't... After sort of reading about it and thinking about it, I don't hate the Ada story. And while I don't disagree with everything that kind of everyone's saying, and it's so hampered by the script and the way it's delivered, I almost look at it like, okay, they were all sat in the room, and there was something they were trying to do here before it all got overblown with the chaos of the gameplay and the 6 different teams all trying to work together and stuff like this. So it's, yeah, I kind of came away from it, and I still feel today, and I have played the rest of Resident Evil 6, and I think this might be the strongest part of it. I do really like Piers and the dynamic with Chris and all that, but the gameplay nature of that is just not as enjoyable as this, which has a bit more going for it. So, yeah, I just kind of wanted to, like I say, to try to be that little beacon for this story. And it's so funny to me that you said it was the unlockable thing. I did not know that. And it makes sense, I guess. But, yeah it's... There is a lot in here, despite the fact you have to replay a load of the same old crap over and over again. So, yeah, I just wanted to kind of, like I said, not argue, but float those things about Ada. I feel like it's not completely devoid of something when it comes to her character and the story.
Yes, you need to unlock this campaign, because otherwise you won't know important details that cross over with the other campaigns, such as it's Ada's fault that the big spike thing is in the final battle that Leon gets to drive through zombies. Which, to be fair, I make a joke of, that is like the one interesting big reveal of Ada's campaign for me in terms of the way that it interacts with others. It's like, oh, that's where that comes from. That's what that is. That's kind of neat.
Yeah.
Jokes aside, I think, I don't think I ham up my dislike of the Ada character. It's genuinely how I feel. But some of the reasoning behind it is I want some answers. I'd love for them to do something with that character and kind of make it my investment in all of Resident Evil more worthwhile because of it. And I think, it just makes me mad because they kind of screwed the pooch on here, because this is where they could have done it. Because I think there is truth to a lot of what you said there. It's why I said arguably Resident Evil 6 should be Ada's game, because it's the first time she's playable in a main numbered title that isn't an additional mode like Separate Ways. Like, she's meant to be a key component of the story. And I always kind of go on about games, don't hold my hand, let the audience figure it out and think about it a little bit more. But they just don't tell any of the story that they really should here. And Steve said it in the last podcast, I think, the fact that the files in this game have to be unlocked by shooting the Plu tokens, and then they're found in a menu. And even then, some of them are chopped up and you can only read the full versions on RENet. It's like, why are you trying to hide the story from us? Because there's interesting stuff in here if you read about it. It's kind of annoying that it's not in the game. That's my problem with it. Yeah. James, how did you feel about the story of the 4th and final campaign?
Just to kind of tack on to what you were saying, like I feel like they had confidence in this story somehow. Like, which is why they did all the franchise itself. They had confidence that people would go out looking for these things. But you have to start from a solid base, a solid foundation to build up.
Agreed.
And this game isn't one. But yeah, in terms of story, and again, I'm going to put story and characters in the same thing when I talk about this stuff. I appreciate your point of view, Kels, but I will be not as nice. So this is a chaser. This Ada campaign is a chaser to Leon's. And Leon's campaign was trash. So you couldn't really levitate any higher. She's a whole ass failure of the Bechdel test as well. Her and Carla, they're only doing this because of the men in their lives, and she's not doing it for themselves. I can't bring myself to pretend or kid myself that she is, because we see a human side to her here, and it goes against what we know as Ada Wong. And I would have liked to learn. I actually would have liked if they went deeper with that, actually deeper into that side of her, But yeah, even there are times when she feels like she's breaking the fourth wall, and that might be because by the time I got to this point in the game, I think I had completely lost the plot. But just like Carla, but but yeah, again, that might be just heavy interpretation by me because I wasn't having fun. But she says there is a point it's stuck in my head where she says, "I hate playing other people's games," and it felt that felt like a triple entendre to me.
Yeah.
It was so funny. It actually made me laugh. I don't think Ada Wong has actually made me laugh in a video game before, so that could be seen as a positive. Yeah, so like the issues of what we see and hear on the screen making sense continues in Ada's campaign. But there were moments of like they're also like just like I just mentioned, they're completely unintended comedy. Like there's this point where Ada she throws her cube that turns into a Toblerone phone into the fire, like to then get a phone call and brings out a regular ass smartphone. I couldn't stop laughing. It was so.
That.
It's right at the end. She throws the cube phone, then she gets a ring from whoever this other party is, right? And she brings out a regular Samsung or whatever. Don't come for me, Samsung. Right? Gets out the phone and takes the call. It's a regular phone with a case and everything. Right? Oh man, it's so funny because that happened, right? And meanwhile, throughout the entire game, we've been introduced to see-through phones and weird-ass phones throughout the entire game. Right? But then Ada comes out with this just regular phone. So funny. And yeah, I think I made myself clear with the first part of this, right? But like I'm not going to go over the main story points of Ada, Sims, and Carla because it isn't worth my time, energy. It's bad, it's problematic, and I'm not going to go any deeper than that.
That's fair. All right, let's talk about BOWs, as we did on the last podcast, touching on the creatures and the monsters and the boss fights across these two campaigns, I guess, specifically. One thing, certainly, that we didn't come across previously is the presence of C-Virus zombies. I don't think they appear at all in the other two campaigns. Not that I can recall. But they are, they're zombies, and sometimes they have weapons stuck in them for whatever reason. There's a lot of zombies out there that have had an axe to the chest, I guess. But other than that, I don't think there was any other monster other than the big fish thing, which maybe you could count as a boss, that we haven't come across before. So it's largely just boss fights. But Steve, how you feel about the BOWs that you fought this time around?
There's a big delineation between who's creating them and what they do. Simmons' unique BOWs that aren't the zombies themselves. I'm speaking specifically of whatever happens to Deborah and the Lepetitsa. Obviously, incredibly horny and sexually evocative, which makes sense because Simmons is like, not beating around the bush. He's a sexually obsessed freak. If this was a Silent Hill game, they were his monsters, So, yeah, that's a kind of twisted through line. In the worst possible way, I kind of get it. The same with why what happens to Carla happens to Carla. That being said, Ada doesn't really get anything other than that as a unique boss fight. The actual design of the Lepetitsa itself, the gas booby demon monster thing with the twisted open brain face, it leaves a mark on your brain. I'll leave it at that. It's definitely, oh my god, it's that thing from RE6 if it ever shows up in a raid game or something,
Yeah.
But I would never want to see it again. It's not a good design, it's just a design I recognise. The same goes for Deborah. Why have we got a naked booby lady with spider legs with giant fingernails?
Yeah, why does she have to move like that as well?
Yeah, that's is that intentional? Is the C-Virus horny itself? The actual zombies, though, right? To dial it a bit around to the jobber BOWs of this entire thing are more animated than the classic ones that we are familiar with. The T-Virus zombies that are a bit lethargic and tanky. These are comparatively brittle. You can blow limbs off and they fall apart into black oily sponge, and they can wield weapons
yes,
to varying degrees. The ones with magnums are an absolute pain in the arse. more so in Mercenaries mode. But that's kind of cool. And that immortal Rescraplangi, or whatever you pronounce it, the bloody discount regenerator that's like 14 million hands. That comes back for everyone's campaign, and I don't like it. I don't like it a lot. So also Whoppers can do one. They're like the crap thing from Left 4 Dead, the tank, just boring and fat instead. Ooh.
Yeah. I think the screamers are really annoying, personally.
It's amazing how much mileage you can get out of a zombie, but I think the most interesting part is riffing off of Las Plagas, in that if you shoot zombies with glowing eyes, they become the blood shots, the discount lickers that have no tongue. That's a mechanical difference. All the rest of it is just plow through them like a horde. It's okay.
Any thoughts on the various Simon forms while we're doing?
Oh god, I forgot. That's it. I can appreciate the foreshadowing of the giant malformed fly at the end. There's the briefest panning shot is like, he's going to be even bigger in a minute. That was kind of neat. Unfortunately, then you have to shove a skewering lightning rod in him to kill him. Meat T-Rex has always been stupid. Meat Jaguar has always been stupid. Meat Jaguar with riding bone skeleton man on top, shooting bone spines. You can guess what I'm thinking. It's genius. No, it's stupid. I can't believe I completely blanked Simmons, like the most ridiculous meme of the entire game. I still think you take him off that spike, he's still alive, though.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the zombies holding weapons thing personally too much, unless it's the mean mugging zombies from Gaiden with the crowbars. Those guys are all right by me. Yeah, but otherwise, I think the zombies in this are quite fun to look at, and the way they move is fun, and they're quite well designed, is it? From a visual aspect. Simmons, I mean, it's stupid and ridiculous. The Panther boss transformation is wild, comes out of nowhere. And then, suddenly he's a T-Rex, and then suddenly a fly. The fly growing massive is at least given some kind of on-screen justification. Like, you can see him absorbing the mass of other zombies to get bigger. But otherwise, he just inexplicably gets bigger and smaller. And that's not how physics works. I don't know. The final boss fight against the fly, there's an idea to that I actually kind of appreciate, that it's not just plow full of bullets, but it's still kind of dull. It's so weird as well, because they make such a big deal out of Simmons, even the implication that he's still alive at the end. But there's no gravity to it, because as we just said, like in the story, he's kind of poorly built up, and he's just a guy who appears out of nowhere. He's not very well explained, and then he mutates a bunch of times and we move on. And I really would have loved him to be more. But by the end of chapter 4, you're like, well, gets this. That's the end of that one then. We move on. Oh, no, we don't. We have to fight him 6 dozen times. Oh, okay, fair enough. James, thoughts on any BOWs this time around?
I don't think... I mean, the Screamers, like... They were annoying to chase all the time, like especially during that graveyard scene.
Yeah,
like I get that was kind of their intention. They're meant to drive you into other zombies, but it was annoying because I think for a solid 2 minutes I was just chasing one at one point, which was just frustrating.
Sorry, I just want to say they run around like they're in a Kevin and Perry sketch. It's a very UK reference, but
Wow, yeah, they do. And you know what's ironic about this game is like, the use of like kind of variations is kind of heavy, even though like kind of the cast of BOWs isn't deep. Like Simmons is like fly form. That's really interesting. Like it's a cool model and it's a cool design. How he got there was really dumb.
Yeah.
And I use this terminology a lot, or this metaphor a lot, but the stages of the boss fight, let's compare it to like William Birkin, for instance. William Birkin's transformations make complete sense in both games, like how he transforms, what he gets to. It makes complete sense within the universe you're in, I mean. But in Resi 6, yeah, I literally feel like they threw these boss ideas into a box, shook it up, and then turned it upside down. Sure, that's phase 1, and sure, that's phase 2. None of each phase made sense to the previous one. Either. One was like chimeral, one was a T-Rex, a meat Rex, I guess, and the other one was a giant fly, which is coincidentally one of the best summons in Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. Like you said, so the zombies. I think Capcom does zombies good. They were solid. I like the zombies. I did find it funny. There was again unintentional comedy stuff in Ada's campaign where a zombie just for no reason, I don't think, or there's no reason I know in terms of story, activates a lever for some reason. Do you remember that? Like you have to shoot down the bodies.
Probably.
Yeah.
It's
when you're in that room with the false floor, and a zombie. It checks behind. Even checks behind it. It waits for Ada to come in. It's like tee, and then just pulls the lever, which I find really funny. I like that zombie. He can be my friend. What others BOWs were there? So we had zombies, we had screamers, we had blobbers. Yeah, the big boys. They were pretty uninspired, just really big people.
Yeah.
Lame.
Pretty
Sorry, I didn't actually hardly wrote anything on BOWs because there isn't actually a lot to it in this game. And also I'm exhausted from this game.
Fair. Kels, any thoughts on your experience with the monsters of RE6?
Well, forget lever pulling, forget holding weapons. The most egregious things the zombies do is they are smart enough to crawl under the spinning blades towards you.
Yeah.
That part
So
really wound me up. But anyway, is it a load of boobs on the monster or is it a load of buttholes? Because it appears to be farting out gas the entire time. So who can say? What else did I think about the BOWs? I mentioned the chainsaw dude. Like the sort of the organic chainsaw stuff is silly, but I did kind of dig it. And like I said earlier, it reminds me of Scorn, where like your weapons are all like fleshy and stuff like that. And so that's kind of fun. I absolutely hate with a vengeance, and I just had to Google what they were called because I didn't know, is the Nesdo. So that's the swarm of insects.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And so...
Oh, the queen fly and stuff.
Yeah, and they just take the shape of like a person, don't they? As they stalk you and come towards you. I just couldn't deal with them at all. I didn't really understand what I was supposed to be doing because... As Ada, you've got to suddenly do the job interview on the speaker to get up to to let it climb you up the stairs and answer all the questions. Every time you try to answer the questions, I was just getting swarmed by these insects, and you sort of fall flat on the floor, and it really hampers your progress. But I couldn't harm them. I don't know what I was doing wrong. I was just trying every single enemy, and I know you kind of eventually. You do place some shots and then they kind of reveal themselves and then you shoot the bug that was apparently invisible and then and that's it. But they just were a real pain in the ass and I absolutely hated them. It is quite fun when the Whopper just bursts into the tiny room and there's like 6 of you in the room going, and just having to deal with it in this tiny space, which I quite like the sort of the forced thing it does to you there. But, the enemies itself is kind of silly. And the Screamer, as we've mentioned, is like a rip-off as well from Left 4 Dead. But and you don't really see Ustanak much in these campaigns, but I thought that the mechanics of that boss fight with the gas canisters was cool in some way. Again, it's slightly different to just pelting something with a load of bullets. But then the Simmons stuff, as you've all said, nonsensical, ridiculous. It's like panther, scorpions, dinosaurs, flies. It's really like, it's funny because if you look back at Resident Evil 1, it's like, oh, is it really unimaginative because they just made giant versions of existing creatures? And it's like, that's not that imaginative, but it was terrifying. There was something terrifying about it. Whereas here, the giant fly to me is just so comical, and I get that he's absorbing lots of stuff, but the fact that it's just got the giant head of a fly is a bit, I don't know, it's just a bit much. And the dinosaur stuff and the way, as I touched on earlier, the way he reforms back into himself and then forms into the monster like some kind of transformer or nanomachines and stuff. I'm sure it's explained in some file somewhere, but I just don't care because it's so far removed from the awesome transformations of Birkin in like Resident Evil 2 and stuff that feel real and visceral and sort of brutal, whereas this is just like, it's just like a transformer, and he's
an action figure.
Why does it turn zombies into geometric shapes?
And the setting on fire as well, I don't know what that's about, but,
well, that's a T virus thing, T Veronica thing,
right? Okay,
so, deep lore
I guess
stuff.
I just checked out about it at that point. But so BOWs, it's like there's some fun stuff in here. There really is some fun stuff, but then there's just some awful stuff as well, and the awful stuff is mainly confined to Simmons. But and the Carla Goop mutation we've touched on. It's just creative but incoherent, really, and it's visually fun, but it's just big grey goop. And I'm saying goop. I'm not saying what you lot say. Nothing else to add on the BOWs. The zombies step out of the way more than ever. It feels like they are taking the absolute out of you, the way they just sidestep your shots. And I like, full disclosure, I played this through on amateur because there's no way I was upping the difficulty. I wanted to get through it. And they're still just dodging his shots left and right. So, yeah, they're too smart for my liking.
I had a very vivid image there when you were saying about Ada doing a job interview, and she gets asked, can you explain this absence on your CV between the 28th of September 1998 and the 1st of October 1998?
I was couch surfing.
Yes, the zombies, you're absolutely right. And I was gonna mention this in the next bit, but we're kind of moving on to it now, so perfectly. James, you mentioned about the train thing with the subway and the shadow on the walls of the zombies running at you, and that being a really cool image that almost feels out of place in RE6 because it doesn't do a lot of that kind of stuff. But then immediately following it, the zombies that come round, we just wander around them, just amble around them. They can't get you. It's just so funny because look at all those zombies, whatever. So that's kind of dumb. Let's talk about visuals then. Visuals of the game, graphics, and all that good stuff. I think overall for me, it's pretty good. It's quite a stylish game, which is good because that's what it wants to go for. It's meant to be a glossy, cinematic Hollywood film. It should look a certain kind of way. And I think, if nothing else, we can be kind here for the most part. At least I will. In that it has a certain kind of style and it achieves it pretty consistently. There are a few places here and there that don't look great. There are a few places that have gotten worse over time with the HD upgrade that the game has had. Unfortunately, obviously, some assets get high-res, some not so much. So after the Simmons battle on the train with the Panther, that was a particularly egregious one. You come up on like the shoreline as Leon and Helena, and the battle, the bridge that you just battled on looks great, but then the skybox is the most like jaggedy thing. It looks really, really silly. But otherwise, yeah, it's good, it's stylish. It's, some stuff looks really cool. The early scenes with Leon and Helena and the zombie and the lift and all that stuff, I remember that being very memorable. As the game drags on, it does have some asset reuse issues for me. Obviously, it's a long game, but occasionally the game has a really great shot or a bit of direction to it, just not very often. But otherwise, not a massive amount of complaints from me at this point. James, how do you feel about the visuals of RE6?
Yeah, like you said, the game looks great. 2012, right? This game came out?
2012 originally, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, like you can't really complain about the game. When it comes to the visual side of it. You can definitely complain about the cinematography, and kind of, yes, it was trying to go for that action kind of movie thing, but there were times I couldn't keep my eyes on a lot of stuff because there's just so much going on visually to look at. I think animations are pretty good. There was nothing that was super awkward. Like typically with these kind of things, especially during that era, there'd be like a weird mouth, or the eyes are weird, or stuff like that, or the way they move. It felt good to look at, definitely. And I was impressed. Like I tried to play this game at its maximum at 4K, like if I could. I did look great for what it did, but I had to bump it down. But yeah, that's it. In terms of visuals though, like overall, not talking about kind of the graphical fidelity, I feel like this game, despite being, I think there's only one level that kind of jumps out at me, and it's this isn't even to do with the Leon and Helena and Ada campaigns, but
no, of course, this is more an overall point now.
General. Chris and Piers, when they're jumping over, and Sherry and Jake, when they're jumping over the ships, in China, that really, because at that point you really see a lot of culture around you. You see a lot of color, and I love that. Even though I hated that section, like to play as, it was great to look at, and it had a lot of identity in it, and it made me wish that the rest of the game had some identity like that, because it didn't. Like there was no color. There was, I love color, Like, I think we all do. We want something. I mean, Resident Evil 1 is full of color, and this game was, just like kind of RE5 was, where it's, you had that sepia filter, but it was all very yellows and grays and browns. Resident Evil 6 is also kind of cool colors, like cool grays and blues, and occasionally you get a warm color in there. But I wanted more identity between the things, because the issue is that when I try and think back to this game and go through it, it's very hard for me to pick apart different parts of it, because my brain physically can't, because it's just glossing over, because everything looks like it kind of is all gelled into one. I suppose there's also the contrast level, I call it, or the Mirror's Edge level with Jake and Sherry, where everything's white and grey, and was also very cool. That's a cool thing. You should do that more. Bring color in or make contrast like that. But yeah, it might have played against the kind of chaotic nature of the game as well, because the game was complete chaos. Whether it be visually to look at, the story, the characters, everything was super chaotic, whereas the rest of the game was very muted and neutral, and I wanted more.
That's fair. Kelsey, thoughts on the way that Resident Evil 6 looks?
I think I mostly agree with James. Look, what I will say is first, I don't know if you lot know this, but I'm a PC gamer now. I got a PC earlier in the year.
I'm very proud of you, Kels. I'm very proud.
Which I'm absolutely loving. So I played this on PC, and the cutscenes looked incredible. I was like, I don't remember this game looking this good. And then like the general gameplay graphics, although some of it stylistically, not a huge fan of. There are some environments that are just like concrete and stairwells and boxes that are completely bland. Yeah. But there are some other places that look really, really cool, like you said. But yeah, graphics-wise, I was like, this game looks awesome. You can't fault it. And cutscenes look great. I was like, yeah, it looks like it's doing everything it can to be in line with the movies and that kind of feel, because it's that sort of era, and you could tell they pumped a lot of time and money and effort into that side of the game. And yeah, it's a shame there's poor stuff around it, but it's very difficult to fault it too much. I really liked, as I mentioned, the sort of some of the candlelit hallways and the more gothic stuff that's very atmospheric underneath the graveyard and around the around the tombs and stuff like that. Carla's mutation is visually wild. It's sort of like kind of fun visually, and there is stuff in here that's. Yeah, where it's like, okay, this isn't a total abomination. I just think this is probably peak time in gaming where it's like they were playing with all the tools they had at the end of this generation to make everything look as good as possible. And it just meant that other parts of the game suffered at the cost of that, because they just spent too much time thinking about fidelity and stuff like that. So whereas I would just rather it was all stripped back and like exactly what they just did when they moved to RE7. And all right, that was on more powerful consoles, whatever. But I just... Some of it is bland and sort of short-lived, in the areas that you are. But there's a lot of variation. I do like some of the lab stuff. I like some of the more weird stuff. I do like a lot of the monitors and screens. There's even a VHS in this, which, stylistically, everyone loves a good VHS. So, lots of really nice stuff to look at. And, not too much else to add, really, than what you guys said.
We've probably got listeners who don't know what a VHS is. Kels, do you want to?
Don't say that.
Tell them.
Don't.
We don't. We definitely don't. I refuse to acknowledge the existence of those people. Sorry. I'm kidding. Steve, what did you make of the visuals of RE6?
Genuinely speaking, especially for the time, they are very good. Like 2012. Same with the animations and stuff. Like, we may have chewed this game to pieces, but genuinely, when characters are doing their funky kicks, their flips, their bulldogs, their gung fu with their action zip shots, which I'm pretty sure is why Leon's dual wielding, by the way, because he has a full string combo with them if you keep doing them.
Right.
They look really, really cool. The only real issue is the textures themselves, but they set it with the right lighting, and they know how to dress a scene at this point for an action film. I find Tall Oaks to be probably the most boring. It says a lot, really, doesn't it? The bit that we've seen in most Resident Evil games before is the boring part. I wish we did more in the actual educational facility, the university itself, because we just kind of walk through it. We walk through these classrooms, we walk through these atriums, lots of space for actual interesting sequences. Probably horrifying having shootings in a school, but also it's a video game, I guess that's a landmine they didn't want to get through. I get it. For me, the standout stuff is always going to be China. Maybe a little bit of late Edonia where you're walking through the snowfield. I talked about that in the last episode. But particularly in regards to Leon and Ada's campaigns, the sniper bit is perhaps the best bit. In terms of you're looking over a giant open water field, you're seeing Jake and Sherry evading the chainsaw monster and a few other Joavo. It's very striking. When you get it's all backlit by a city on fire at night with neon. They know how to dress a scene, is what I'm saying. This is the most cinematic Hollywood vibe. That might be the thing, the vibe. Does it fit Resident Evil as a whole? Maybe not, but that doesn't mean it does look good and it is animated well.
Good.
Can I just quickly add, sorry, just in terms of animation, there is a piece of animation that I despise in this game, and that's the massive pirouette the characters do when you get knocked out and they sort of spin round 360 before they hit the floor. I don't know what's going on there. I mean, it's animated well, I suppose. It just looks stupid.
Speaking of animations, actually, by the way, since it came up earlier and I forgot to return back to it, as there was a mention of, at least with Ada Wong's campaign, considering Agent isn't there if you're playing solo, you have to wait at doors for people. Yes, but the game still does an animation for a second where it's almost going to do that. like it kind of prepares for it. It's like, no, just go straight through the door. You don't need to go to an animation with a different camera angle of her opening the door and then cutting back. It was really weird, but there you go. Okay, we've done visuals. Let's do audio in general. Kelsey, what did you make of the audio design of RE6, music, sound effects, voice acting?
This is probably my smallest section of notes. What my biggest takeaway, apart from obviously the soundtrack is kind of dominated by general sort of forgettable action music, I do think there are many times they go to great lengths to put nods to things like RE4 and RE2 in this, certainly in these two campaigns that I played, with things like the bells and the little bits of motifs, and it is there, and it's stuff that, you know, I played this game with headphones on as I played it, and there's plenty of music in this game that just went straight over my head, or, you know, through in and out of my ears. But then there's other parts, like when you're underground or when you're round by the church and stuff like that. It's like, oh no, yeah, they are trying to pay homage here. And so I wanted to touch on that, because it's not a soundtrack that I've gone back to and listened to individually. I've only heard it within the context of the game, but there's plenty of atmospheric moments, particularly in Ada's campaign, that work quite well. In terms of other sound design, I mean, yeah, it all works. Like I say, it's high production value. You've got explosions, you've got gunshots, you've got screaming creatures and stuff like that. There isn't anything else that majorly stuck out to me. But as I was playing and just thinking about the sound, it was like, oh, yeah, there's little beats of music in there that it's, again, I can imagine them in the rooms making the game thinking, oh yeah, we got to get this in there. And they've made an effort to, despite so much of it that isn't a Resident Evil that I enjoy, it's like, yeah, there's some little musical nods in there to the original games, certainly to RE sort of 2 and 3 and RE4, you know, not recreations of those pieces of music, but just stylistically there's a ton of that in there, which I did really appreciate.
Yeah, I'm a fan of that stuff. And when it comes to the music, I would say it's certainly a mixed bag, as you'd expect. So a streaming service told me that the soundtrack for this game was 4.5 hours of music, which, you know, of course. So it's going to be a real mix.
All good.
Yeah, imagine. I do think there is some stuff in here which is really pretty great, actually. There's it's not many pieces, but it might be enough one day for, and now that's what I call survival horror, at least one episode that's worth talking about in isolation. Bright sparks from a malaise, though, to me. It's mostly stuff that suits the game, to be fair. Some of it is outright bad and annoying. And Jordan said on the last episode that the main theme has, like, Batman vibes, and it really does. And I think that's probably intentional, because The Dark Knight had been out a few years before this, I think, right? And it was such a big deal. And yeah, I always think that about that main theme. I do think that's cool that there's variations of that depending on the character as well. The result screens and stuff like that are kind of variations on the same kind of melodies and this sort of thing, which is neat. But yeah, that I'll do some other bits, but that was my take on music. James, what did you make of the audio in RE6 across the board?
I'm really sorry, but
You got enough.
It was
James played it on mute. He couldn't take it.
They were clearly aiming for an action-orientated video game when it comes to the music. It's just It feels very generic to me, like almost everything. I didn't, you know, normally when I'm listening to a game or when I'm playing a game, there is stuff that kind of stands out to me. And other than the title screen, which I think is the only reason is because I would hear it every time I would start the bloody game up. There is no other music that really stands out to me in the game. I didn't even know. I didn't even know there was a different music on the results screen. Like, because the game has just beat me down so much at this point that I know I did. By the way, I did not play this game mute. I did not not have music on. I enjoy the music. I enjoy music, and I really enjoy music in Resident Evil games normally. But I don't know if the music felt Resident Evil for me. And to be honest, when I'm playing, like I was mostly probably concerned about trying to get a QTE or being preoccupied with trying to fight the camera, to even notice any kind of background music that was happening. So sorry, it's not a very insightful section for audio for music from me, but that's not really a take, but that's my part anyway.
That's fair. For me, when it comes to the voice cast, it's been touched a bit on here. I just want to reiterate what other people have said, really. On both counts, I think we have Troy Baker and Laura Bailey in Resident Evil here, and they're in Resident Evil 6 of all things, which is kind of a shame. What a waste, of talent that has gone on to be some of the most recognisable names in their industry, and they're playing two characters that we're probably never going to see again. And that, for the most part, terrible scripts that they had to deliver something good out of. And Steve, you mentioned the Chris and Leon interactions. I think they are really good. The yelling at each other thing is kind of easily laughed at and a bit over the top, but I don't think you can say you had your shot at putting a bunch of Resident Evil characters together and you screwed it up, because this is the game that it was always going to be when Chris, Leon, and Ada were all into one story. But it is nice that the movies exist, but it's nice that we get to have an on-screen Leon and Chris interaction in a video game. The phone call bit in particular is one of the standout scenes of the game, I think.
Yeah.
Just from a character perspective, to have those two characters get to interact was neat. Matt's only time playing Leon in a video game, I think, as well. But Roger in particular is great in this. Again, even though I think they've given him trash to work with, he really excels at certain points. So fair play to all of them for working what they had into something at least kind of enjoyable from that perspective. And my only other take is a repeat of the last episode, but I do think that the Joavo sound effects are quite memorable. It might not be for the right reason. I don't know why they sound so compressed to me. Why are they yelling at me down a Pringles tube? I'll never know. It's such a weird noise, but there you go.
And they have one death scream, and they use it all
the
time.
That's probably why it's memorable. It's like playing friggin' Golden Axe, everyone making the same sound. Steve, what did you make of audio in RE6?
I'm going to be feeling awful. Compared to a lot of Resident Evil games, a lot of it outside the main theme and raid mode, the Mercenaries music, it's kind of like wallpapery. Not bad, but not necessarily leaving much in the old brain pan, unfortunately. I think it has to be said that while we may have misgivings about the story and various things, performances of VAs cannot be understated. Jake goes from being a guy who would be insufferable to kind of really fun with Troy Baker. I do think that Roger Craig Smith playing a more stressed out and frayed at the edges Chris, and that get the hell out of there when he realises where Leon is. Like, I can feel that there's some emotion in that. The only quibble I probably have is maybe Courtney Taylor's Ada. I feel like she'd just been in Mass Effect 2 as Subject Zero Jack, and that unfortunately come out the same year or near enough, and I only hear that one. I heard her voice doing a different character, and it's like, this doesn't sound right to me. Plus, Sally Cahill was still there. I don't know why, because she did voice Ada not long after in one of the films. She dubbed I can't remember the Chinese lady's name, but she dubbed Ada again while the game was being made, or around the same time, which is very strange. Not saying Courtney Taylor isn't a great voice actress, she is. It's not really much to go on other than that. Like, the performances were okay, the script was terrible, Matt Mercer was wasted, and where's Jake and Sherry at Capcom?
Fair. All right, then, we have arrived at the end of this episode, so let's give some conclusions for our experience with the campaigns of Resident Evil 6. I'll get mine out of the way. I literally was writing my notes and I said to my housemate, how the hell do I sum up Resident Evil 6? And she said, playing that game made you sad. And I was like, yeah, do you know what? That's how I've got to start. Playing this game made me sad. More sad than I expected, actually, because this time I actually saw some things that I could have liked out of it. Not so much necessarily in these two campaigns, obviously, stuff that I talked about in the last one, but overall, considering I spent 26 hours or whatever playing through it, it's a drop in an ocean. This game is largely crap, unfortunately, and an unbelievable slog to get through. And I'm very thankful that we've done this now, because I can say I've played all of the campaigns across the course of a couple of months rather than all in drips and drabs, as you would do if you buy the game on launch and you're excited to play through a new Resident Evil and then you wind up forcing yourself through it. Most importantly now, though, I've done this, so hopefully I never have to play Resident Evil 6 like this again. At least not solo, maybe co-op, sure, fine, but I think I can wash my hands of this game now we've finally done this coverage. James, your conclusion on Resident Evil 6?
Yeah. That's a great summary. Like, just it made I feel maybe I can be quite critical at times, and sometimes I literally, as I said in previous podcasts, sometimes I literally refuse to go on podcasts if I feel like I'm going to rip into something too much, because I don't like to put like too much bad into the world, So and I realized that a lot of people worked on Resident Evil 6, and video games, any video game that comes into like the limelight actually gets to a finished conclusion, what they consider to be finished, is a miracle. Video games take an incredible amount of time and expertise to create at the end of the day. But we're here to review if it's a Resident Evil video game, and Resident Evil 6 wasn't. And it wasn't fun, and that is the juxtaposition. Really, that's the crux of it. Really, right? Is that it? You play video games to escape, and you play them to be fun. And I think all of us had to play another game just to get through this. It's like
so true.
Another game was your therapy to get through RE6. And the other thing is that no one needs to play this game. If you want to understand Resident Evil, you do not need to play Resident Evil 6. If there's a particular character you want to play it, sure you can, right? But it will not lead into anything else ever again. Because Capcom hates doing that, first of all, but also it's like they meticulously picked the story of whatever was initially on the whiteboard. They picked it apart so it couldn't be continued. It couldn't continue like in any capacity. And I mean, they do have the choice to do it with like kind of Sherry Jake and kind of the Wesker line and other stuff as well, but they won't. It's truly been exhausting and tired. And as you can tell, like there's sometimes when I do podcasts with the Fast Crew, and like if I don't like something, you can tell because I typically make hardly any notes on it. I put as much time as I feel like the game has put into me as a player playing it. And yeah, for this one, I made 2 paragraphs. And that was it.
Fantastic.
And Sai's seen the way I plan my listings and stuff. I go deep into it, but this one didn't deserve my time, and it's not worth your time either.
Yeah, it's funny you say about how this game doesn't ever get referenced back to, because the only other thing I've kind of got down here that would be good to mention is that the cul-de-sac of this game where it will never be expanded upon. And the funny part about this is, and I'm sure this was absolutely not the plan, but Capcom kind of get to have their cake and eat it here, because this game made a load of money, and also the company is pat on the back because, hey, you pivoted away from this and you've not gone back to it since. Well done, you, so far. That's so funny to me. It's like, you've made the terrible thing, but you also made the good thing after the terrible thing. So well done, and also here's your money. So weird. Kelsey, final thoughts on RE6?
Yeah, over 15 million copies sold, so somebody likes it. It's mad. I was looking before we recorded, and even though it sold like 9 million copies early, apparently that was still below projections or something like that.
Right.
So they had even bigger hopes for it, obviously, because they pumped a lot of money into this game, and then over time it's sold more, and so people are picking it up. And I think we've touched on it in the past that it's often on sale, and it's everywhere. Like, so it's easy to pick up, so it's going to rack up a load of sales. But from my perspective, it's funny because there's nothing inherently broken with the gameplay or anything, and we've talked about how the graphics are fine and stuff like that. It's like it functions fine as a game, and I know that there's people on the server who swear by the co-op of this game and have played it co-op and enjoy the co-op and stream it co-op and get a lot out of it, and it's like fair play to them. But for me personally, it's not what I'm looking for. It was a painful experience to play. Despite on this episode trying to be fair and point out stuff that I did enjoy and thought wasn't too bad, I think overall, when you look at all of it together and my general experience, it was a horrible experience, and it was a slog, and there is way more that I didn't like about it than I did. And like James said, I don't want to just keep going on about that because I know people made it, but I'm talking from the perspective of a consumer and the fan of Resident Evil, and Resident Evil is lots of different things, but there's a thing I would like from Resident Evil. This doesn't give me what I'm looking for from Resident Evil, and then even just from kind of video game stuff, it's not really giving me what I want either, because it's got all this forced co-op stuff and everything, and that's not really how I play games. And yeah, it's I went and did reading about it and watched some stuff about it after. And the game was each campaign was made by a different team. And they specifically said that they set up the teams to effectively run as like an independent studio within the entire production team. And it shows, because the whole thing is disjointed. And I think that's what happened. Like, clearly their intentions were good. It was incredibly ambitious, and they thought they were going to deliver this big, epic, tie everything together adventure that Resident Evil fans, that was off the back of the action success of 4 and 5, and pay homage to wrap up Raccoon City and bring a Wesker back into it and stuff like this. There's so much in there that you could tell they probably thought they were doing the right thing, but I just think they aimed too high. I think everything got out of control. It's not fun to play. The story is nothing gets enough time to properly develop and deliver on its promise. And yeah, it's just a very shiny, well-functioning, boring video game in many ways, and it's a shame. It's a real shame. But like you said, Si, obviously they recognised that and they pivoted, because look where we are now. Well, look where they went next, and look where we are now. And yeah, it's a weird moment for Resident Evil, for the entire franchise. And I'm glad we've done it. I'm glad we've talked about it. And I just finish on saying thank you to you, Si, for only putting me through playing 2 campaigns, because I don't think I would have finished playing Chris's and Jake and Sherry's, because yeah, I was really struggling by the time I finished Ada's, and I'm really glad I didn't have to play the other 2, and I genuinely don't think I will ever play this game ever again. But good luck to anybody that wants to enjoy it. It's not for me.
Fantastic. Imagine how we all feel. On that note,
well done.
Steve, final thoughts on RE6's campaigns?
My goodness. We've taken the organic chainsaw, the anti-material rifle, and the satchel bomb to this game. And I'm probably the one who likes it the most, which is horrifying to think about. RE6 is a bloated mess, and it was kind of like the end of a road started with RE4, and I can enjoy RE4 and RE5 quite a lot, but this is where the bombast and the blockbuster caught up with it, and it shows that the plot is nonsense. The combat and I will attest this. The combat is freaking. When you can get into the flow of it, it is absolutely aces. Like if they took the mechanical concept and the gunplay in this and put it into something different, didn't call it Resident Evil and made it its own character action thing, I reckon it could still go. I reckon it still have legs. You maybe have to figure out not getting knocked and waddled over by everything, and that. Stamina system needs a little bit of work, but the gunplay, the melee actions, all pretty fun. But the absolute train wreck that is the quote-unquote plot, I am glad that we went much smaller scale after this. This was like anathema to whatever anyone should want Resident Evil to be. And I know Resident Evil 6 still has fans. There are people who think it's the quote-unquote the best of the action trilogy and has a good story. To which I say, I'm personally never reading your works, but have a good day. I probably will return to RE6 as like side mode. Mercenaries is pretty cooking. I've never tried the Versus stuff, and I probably never will because who else wants to play RE6?
Well, on that note, nothing else remains for me but to thank the panel, our contributors, and our community. Join us on the First Aid Spray Discord server to hear the show early, and check out our merch store or our Patreon to support the show. Don't forget that these and our social media links can be found at faspraypod.com. You can listen to the podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all good podcasting apps. And if you like what you hear, please do leave us a review where you can and spread the good word. On our next episode, unless Survival Unit arrives outside of Australia, we're still not done with Resident Evil 6. You might get your wish, Steve, because yes, we've covered all 4 campaigns, and I've been very careful to say conclusion on your campaigns and so on, but there are other modes to this game. So, unless we all throw our hands up and say no more, join us as we discover the multiplayer side of Resident Evil 6. Thank you to the panel. You can follow the Pueblo people on Blue Sky. I'm at SciWhite. Steve was at FB Steve. James is at Moist Owlet OFF. And Kelsey is at KDB_init. And finally, thank you for listening and have a good week.
I can't believe this has been 2 hours and 20 minutes. I thought I was like, surely we won't go on because there was not very much news.
Collectively about 6 hours on Resident Evil 6 now.
It doesn't deserve it.
And it's still shorter than the average campaign. How the hell has that happened?
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
We're normally longer than the campaign run of a game.
Well done, everyone.